All right, now we're going to do part 2 of the Voyance software, just a little bit more detail on some of the more advanced tools and how to use them. We're going into the acquisition icon. We're going to log in as the engineer. We've been through the different logins that you can configure. And we did talk about the comparison. Just a quick review. We're going to search our database by either day, month, year, or we're going to clear all the search dates, hit search for anything that's in here. Let's just say that this study and this study are two that I want to compare. When I select one, hold the control button down, select the other, the compare icon lights up. I can select that and it'll put the two images or two studies side by side. Here we want to compare the chest x-ray between the two, and so you can scroll through each of the images on either of the studies, and you can select that image, puts the blue box around it, and you can use any of these tools to adjust the image as you need. Once you're finished, you can just hit the check mark and it'll take you back to the work list. The next thing I want to talk about is moving studies. Let's just say that we have this PA chest in this patient's file, and it actually belongs in this patient's file. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this study. We're going to come to this edit button. We click edit, and then you can either cut or copy the images. In this case, we're just going to copy the image that we want to cut or to take out. So we're going to select the PA chest, come to the edit, we're going to copy that image, we're going to close this, we're going to open this study that we want to add it to, we'll come down to the edit button, and now this button is lit up now that we can paste that study right in there. We click that and the image pops right in. Then we would go back to the first study and cut that image out. We just made sure that it transferred over correctly. If you're confident enough, you can just cut it from the beginning, still come in and paste it into the correct study. So that's a very nice feature and a very easy one to use. The other thing that you can do is if you have a report, say that is on the desktop or any type of file that is on the computer that you've saved on the desktop or in any type of shared folder or anything like that, you can hit this edit button. You can select here that you can import images, and you can select where this might be. Say that if you go to your desktop and you have an image here that you would like to select from, then you can open it up and it'll apply it add it right to the study. So it's very nice for moving images, or if you want to take maybe a copy of a report or some pertinent article or anything like that and attach it to this patient's study, you would just simply import it in. You can actually go to the internet, bring in some type of document, save it on your desktop, and import it straight in. It's a very nice feature for it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the stitching portion. So we've got a patient here. Let's say we've got, I think we'll use this patient. We've got, it's not two complete body parts, but we'll just say we're going to stitch these two images. So we're going to open that study up, and you can do this afterwards, or you can do it when you acquire the image, either one. So in this case, we're doing it post-processing. We're going to stitch, if this were 2 or 3 images of like a cervical, thoracic, lumbar spine, you want to stitch those, you would click the first image, hold the control down, click the second image, and then if there's a third, you hold the control down and pick the third image. Once you select at least 2 images, then our stitching icon lights up then. So, and if you fly over these tools, each will tell you what they do. So here we've selected 2 images, so we have the capability of stitching with a license on this system. It is a separate license that has to be purchased, but when you hit the stitch, you can select the auto. It's going to automatically use anatomy and pixel values to try to stitch it automatically on its own. It does a very good job when you've actually got proper images to stitch. We also recommend with our stitching program that you buy the stitching stand so that patients will hold still between views, and it also has a ruler that's exposed that really helps when you're lining them up. You can move the image one row at a time, up or down, left or right, or you can freehand the image, hold it down with your left mouse click, line it up to where you think it should go. The anatomy lines up, maybe the ruler markers line up, you get it exactly where you want, then you hit save. It'll save that as an additional image, as a completed stitched image. It's a very quick, very simple, and a very thorough stitching software. We'll save that stitched image in that particular one. We have, in this case, we want to talk about the dual panel. This system works very well in what we call a hybrid dual panel environment. So what we would do is we would sell the customer, or the customer would purchase 2 wireless DR panels. In this case, it would be the 17 by 17. You can do it with a 14 by 17. Typically, we sell 2 17 by 17 wireless panels. We configure it when we set them up with one router, and the router is recognizing the 2 separate IPs for the 2 different panels. We'll put one permanently in the wall stand, and then we'll run the one micro USB cable to the panel that will power it up. So we're not communicating through that cable. We're only powering the panel up so that you don't have to change a battery, but it's still communicating with the wireless router. You would then, if you need it, to pull it out to use it in the whole room, then you simply unplug the one micro USB connection, take the panel out. It's already connected to the router, so it's a very quick and simple, true hybrid solution. And then what you would do is you would have 2 panels that you would show down here. When you acquired an image, you would select which panel you wanted to activate. So let's say, for instance, this patient, we're going to do some additional imaging on them. We'll double click it. Since this is a completed study, we would need to reactivate it to take additional images. So we would hit activate. It says, are you sure you want to activate the study? So now that it's activated, we could come down and we could select either panel that we wanted, either the chest or the table panel. You can name them whatever you want when we set it up so that the customer can identify it. Say we're going to select the chest panel. We're going to select our avatar. We're going to pick a chest PA. And I'm going to close this up just so we got the bigger view. We're going to replicate the exposure. The chest will automatically come up. And since we'd had all the rotation set on this to automatically horizontally rotate it, then it did automatically rotate the image. It applied all the correct algorithms, and you've got the images finished. So the other thing about with this panel, I'm going to hit this as being done, finish this. When we set this up to configure our dual panel, in the settings under the hardware, we can select each panel separately, and we can put in the views the body regions that we want it to automatically select that panel for. So in this case, I'm calling this the chest panel. This is typically the one that would go in the wall stand. And I want to configure so that anytime we select a chest, a C-spine, or a shoulder, it's automatically going to select that panel by default. Anytime you wanted to change it, you would simply come down to the sensor, select the other detector, and it would automatically tell it to get ready. Same way with the table, we would set up different study regions that we wanted it to automatically select that panel for, as opposed to having to select them on the fly and maybe not select the right one, and do an exposure and not get any kind of image. So that's a really nice feature on this one. Again, if we had it selected when we did chest x-rays to automatically select the chest one, and we wanted to select the table one, we simply come in and select table instead. Very nice, and truly a hybrid system in this environment. Setting up remote nodes, we did touch on this in the preliminary one. Just wanted to do a little bit of review. As we're setting up remote nodes, again, we would select new remote node. We would indicate the name, the AE title, the IP that it's going to, the port number, and we can select here if we want it to enable future edits. Enabling future edits means that if after you had completed the study, they open the viewer or open the study up again and look at it, make any kind of changes, add any kind of measurements, then it would allow those changes to go back to the original stored image. This comes in handy like in a chiropractic environment, maybe a veterinary environment where they're going to do a vertebral assessment, a vertebral heart assessment, or a chiropractic where they're doing an ileum analysis or anything like that on a separate workstation in their office using the viewer. Then those would apply back to the stored image. If you're just setting it up and you want to use the viewers as simply a way for the providers to view the image, but no changes that they made would be applied back to the original image, then you would uncheck this. However, you would want to check the burn measurement tools and the burn the patient information and labels. We want to select those so that any of the annotations we did, like left or right marker or text notes or anything like that, would go with the image to the third-party packs. And again, we can set up here for the study to automatically, from the to-server icon here, if we study uploading, we can select it to automatically send to that one, not send it again to the Voyance, because we're doing that on completion. Or you can tell it to automatically send to here. If you've got it set so you only use this icon to send to the radiologist for overread or a third-party packs, you could select that, unselect this, and tell it not to ask. And then whenever you select that, it'll automatically give you the button to send without any questions right to the provider or the third-party PAC system. We usually leave that for you to check so you can just give it that last quick look, make sure it is the one you want to send it to, and then you can do the same for study completing. That's when you hit done at the bottom and it sends it to the completed list. We can do the same thing. We can have it automatically, always want it to automatically send to the Voyance VPACs, and we can have it automatically send to a third-party PACS or not. We always want to include the image overlays with this as well. DICOM modality work list is configured within the same screen under the communications. You would just add the DICOM modality work list information into the remote node here that we get from their EMR. This is a DICOM query, has DICOM query capabilities only. So just keep that in mind. All right. The last thing that we want to talk about was installing viewers. So what we do when we install viewers is we see that it automatically installed this viewer on our acquisition computer. We can take the same software that we are currently running, and they do need to be the same, the acquisition and the viewer software should be the same version. So we would go into our folders, and this one I don't have it configured exactly this way, but generally in our folders in here under the computer in the C drive is typically where we keep these. In a BRX, and we typically have a BRX or a Voyance folder in here that we have the version of software sitting in there as a file, we could take that. We could take that file, put it on like a thumb drive, and then take it to any of the computers that are on the network that have a PC. You cannot load it on any of the tablets or any of that right now. It has to have a operating system, and then preferably the Windows 10 that it's running. I haven't tried it on the Mac. I'm not sure that it runs on a Mac, but maybe it does. We will do some testing on that. But what you would do is you would simply run that software on that computer. When it came to the one portion where it asks about what you're going to be loading, it's got the viewer. It's also got the acquisition. It selects the panel and everything else. When you set up the original one, you would uncheck everything except for the viewer. And then you would simply install it as normal. It'll put this icon on the desk, and the very first time when you double clicked on this icon, before it automatically logged in, it would pop up asking you for the license. You would put in the acquisition computer static IP and just hit the connect button, and it'll connect. And then you would go in, and you'd still want to go into the engineering and configure users for that particular viewer, because they are all individual. The ones that are set up now in our acquisition would not transfer over to the viewer software as well. So that's the way that we install viewers with it. The other thing is that the Voyance does put their latest version softwares on their website. It's a very easy thing to download their software right from their website. So what you do is, from the acquisition computer, for instance, you would just launch your browser. Their web address is www.medicatech.usa.com. When you go to that website, then you would just go to Voyance, and then latest releases. You would want to download the software as well as the VPACs with the same version number on it. So usually it's this top one and the bottom one. These are the most recent versions that they have. They've got a Spanish version and the integrated version. So typically this one and this one are the ones that we use. On their website, they've got a couple of videos that are pretty helpful. They've got technique charts. They've got a user manual and everything else on it, which are all, pretty good features. When you download the version, we save a copy of that version, put it in their folder so that we know which version that they're running, and also it indicates on there. All right. One last thing that I wanted to show you is when we log in, how to use some of the tools. So let's say that we're in this study and we want to use some of the advanced tools. A lot of the systems have a separate user's manual that tells you how to use certain tools. This software is pretty intuitive, so there's no user's manuals. But what you do is, when you select one that you want to do, let's just say the spine labeling. You select spine labeling. Down here, it'll give you step-by-step instructions on what you want to do. Click on the spinal column. So we're going to click here, and this is a cervical, and it's C1. Okay. Then we want to come to here, C2, C3, C4. This is the way that it does it. So it'll give you step-by-step instructions. If you want to do like the normal cervical curve, you would click that. You click on the upper end of the first vertebral body in the cervical area. So obviously this is typically done on a lateral C spine. We'll just say this was C1. You click there, and then it says click on the lower end of the last vertebral body in C spine, which would be right here. And this would give you what the normal curve would be. So it's very nice how each of the tools, and especially as you get into something like the pelvic analysis, and the veterinarian with a vertebral heart assessment, all those tools, there's multiple steps that you have to take, but it's really nice. They give you the individual step-by-step instructions down here. So hopefully that helps. And again, if we want to get rid of these, we can fly over them, left click, hit the delete. We can delete those. Again, you highlight them, you fly over that tool, highlight it with a left click, and then just hit delete on the keyboard and gets rid of all those annotations. So hopefully this is helpful, and if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.